Fusions are so much easier when you plan for success. Hello, everyone. Bront, CatHerder here. We're having some fun talking Raid Shadow Legends, and I'm here quickly. We're going to go over the calendar for the Packmaster Fusion. It is a standard fragment fusion, so it should be fairly easy. The schedule looks pretty accessible. One thing I do want to point out here before we actually go over to the calendar, the Summon Rush has started today as of Thursday. The Summon Rush is actually pretty accessible, with the full 15 fragments being accessible at 3,200 points. It looks like they are also doing double points for Ancients. Usually these are 20 points, but these are actually 40 points at the moment. And right now it is a guaranteed for Shemnath, who is a champion I'm not super excited about. She's okay. Her kit reads very well. Depending on where you are in the game, she's not a bad champion, but she is not a must-have champion by any stretch of the imagination. So I wouldn't worry about her too much. But looks like all you need to plan for is 6 to 7 of the sacred shards for the champion fragments here. So let's go take a look at the calendar and make a plan for how we can attack this. Do be aware, however, that the progressive events are going to be starting on Friday and going through Sunday. So if you want the guaranteed champion, you do that now. If you don't want the guaranteed champion, wait for the progressives. There's some pretty juicy ones. I believe Duchess is one of the ones in the regular shards, and I believe Sify is one of the ones in the other shards. So definitely worth looking into and waiting for the progressives if you're pulling shards that are not going to be Ancients for Shemnath specifically. All right, so we've got the schedule here, and today we have the start of the fusion. We have Ice Golem, we have Summon Rush, and we have the Champion Training event. Summon Rush will go all the way through Monday morning, aka it's the normal Friday through Sunday event. Champion Training goes around the same time. I would probably focus on Champion Training right now and then deal with the Ice Golem during the Dungeon Divers event, although depending on what you're doing for Champion Training, you may want to do some of that during Dungeon Divers as well. The Dungeon Divers that starts tomorrow will also overlap with the Firemight tournament, so that's going to make this a little more accessible, but Dungeon Divers tend to be the big pain points in these events. So highlighting a couple easy ones. First of all, we have Classic Arena here. We have Classic Arena here. Those are easy. Just make sure you don't miss them. So this is over the weekend. This one here is also over the weekend. So basically just be aware you need to do some arena during the weekend. Again, Dungeon Diver Event 1 here is Ice Golem, Champion Training, and Fire Knight. Dungeon Diver Event 2 overlaps with the last day of Fire Night, as well as the Dragon Tournament and the Champion Training event, which is nice because I'm not a huge fan of Dragon, but you got to run it for a little while for the event, and then Champion Training gives you another way to do Dungeon Divers as well. And then Dungeon Divers 3 overlaps with the Dragon Tournament and Spider. So at the very least, if you're struggling towards the end of these and you're not sure, you can do these two Dungeon Divers event first, and then you can see where you're at. There are 130 fragments, however, 20 of them are leaderboard bonuses, so there's 10 extra fragments that you can snag from events. If you get the extra ones from the Summon Rush, as I showed you before, that is going to be 6 or 7 Sacreds. It's 3,200 points, so you can do it with 6 Sacreds and a bunch of Mystery Shards or some Ancients. It's pretty easy to do. I would recommend going for those extra 10 points and then doing as much of these as you can. And if you miss an event or two, you've got some flexibility. Champion Chase also has 15 points available for it as well, however, so keep in mind that you are going to have to hit the top end of Champion Chase, which is usually around 2,500 points, maybe 3,000 points. So if you've got fusions, for example, past fusions, you can certainly pull them during the Champion Chase tournament. Any champion you get in any way, shape, or form counts towards the Champion Chase tournament. So there's all kinds of cool ways you can make that Champion Chase tournament work. So we've got the Ice Golem and Fire Knight here during this first Dungeon Divers, as well as the Champion Training Tournament. That should make this Dungeon Divers fairly accessible, but again, they're pretty painful. There are 1, 2, 3 artifact enhancement events. For me, I usually don't struggle dealing with these because I've got an awful lot of silver. I know some people really do struggle with these, so if you're the type of person that struggles with this artifact enhancement, make sure you're running extra dungeons. farming extra silver, maybe even buy silver from the clan shop if it's available. I didn't check to see if silver is available this week. There's all kinds of ways you can get silver. That's a usable way to get silver. Just make sure you've got enough to roll up these events. Artifact enhancement events, honestly, I think are some of the best events for progressing your account because they force you to roll up to things to plus 12 is generally one of the better places to do it for silver, or you finally roll a couple of your good pieces of gear up to 16. What's a good piece of gear? Well, I've got some videos on that. I can certainly give advice on that online, on my Discord, on Twitch. There's lots of different ways to see some of the best gear, but generally, a good piece of gear is a set that's good with substats that work with that set well. And I know that's very broad and that can be questionable, but if you look at what a set does, damage sets tend to do things like ignore defense or give you damage stats. Protection sets tend to give you regeneration or potential abilities or other stuff like that. And that'll let you know if you're looking for things like accuracy, you're almost always looking for speed, or if you're looking for things like nuking stats, like your crits or whatever else. Definitely do the artifact enhancement events if you can, although to be fair, you could miss one of these events possibly. I would certainly aim to maybe miss one or two of the Dungeon Divers events over the artifact enhancement. That's my personal opinion, but it really will depend on where you are in your account. So we pointed out the Dungeon Divers and where they overlap. There's only one day off between Wednesday and Thursday for the Fire Knight to the Dragon Tournament. So this Wednesday is going to be a very bland day with the Artifact Enhancement effect just starting, Dungeon Divers 2 running, and Champion Training starting, but with Fire Knight ending. So do kind of be aware of that. The good news is the midweek lull can sometimes be nice, especially if you're looking to take a break during the week. We've got the 2 classic arena tournaments we pointed out. Champion Chase is probably going to be 2x Sacreds, I think is what's due next, because we had 2x Ancients recently. So do be aware that might make this a little bit more difficult because 2x Sacreds is honestly one of the worst things for Champion Chase because Sacreds don't give you a lot of extra for the extra bonus because you're already getting all the epics in the first place. So it's only the extra legendaries that really help you. So do be aware. I don't know what that's going to be, but it could be Sacreds. You may still want to pack up a bunch of Ancients or a bunch of Voids to pull for that, especially if you're a little low on Sacreds, or use some other champs from like the Fragment Summons, or use some of the fusions that you can use to make that Champion Chase work. Hopefully this has been it's been a very brief and a pretty quick overview, but I think this is actually a fairly manageable event. It's very nice that the Summon Rush is not a lot of Sacred Shards, but it is worth noting that Champion Chase is probably going to be 2x Sacreds, which will certainly play into that Sacred cost for some people as well. But again, you don't have to pull the 2x during a Champion Chase. There's plenty of other ways you can get the points. I think this fusion is actually kind of interesting. I think he's worth going for just because if there's another legendary dog that he pairs with very, very well that comes out, it will make him an incredibly OP champion. And if not, his kit's reasonably decent for Hydra. You do have to set his AI at the moment because his AI looks like it's not programmed very well, but we'll see if Polarium fixes some of that stuff. That also could be a case of the test server just not having everything fully lapped out. But I think he's a decent champion. I think he's worth going for. And as a fragment champion, I think he's worth going for as many fragments as you can, even if you're not going for the actual champion, because you can use the fragments towards mod. And if you do get this champion, he's then somebody you can stick in your portal and wait for another champion chase later on to use him for 500 points. Or if you use him for CVC and you celebrate that, he's 30,000 points if he's a brand new legendary for CVC. So there's a lot of use for him even outside of actual, in-game use for you. And I think he's a good champion worth going for. So I definitely recommend going for any and all fragments. They're just super easy to get if you plan ahead of time and look for the schedule. So hopefully this has been helpful. You all take care. And until the next video, I'm Bront CatHerder.